At exactly 2:17 a.m., Ava Green's phone burst to life on her nightstand, vibrating so loudly it slid against the wood. The alarm from her security app flashed red across the cracked screen. Intruder detected at the greenhouse. Her breath caught. For a moment, she sat frozen, heart hammering like it was trying to break out of her chest. Then she threw off her blanket and slipped into yesterday's jeans, still crusted with dried soil at the knees. She snatched her keys from the hook, her hands trembling. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting her cheeks as she jumped into her old blue pickup. The engine coughed awake. She sped down the dark country road, headlights slicing through the trees, gravel spitting under her tires. Please, please, please let everything be okay, she whispered, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. 11 minutes felt like an hour. When she finally turned into her long driveway, her stomach dropped. The heavy padlock on the gate hung open, sliced clean through. No, Ava breathed, stepping out slowly. Not tonight. Not now. She pushed the gate open and felt glass crunch beneath her boots. Ava left the truck crookedly parked, headlights still blazing toward the shattered greenhouse. The light stretched long shadows over the broken glass, like cracks spreading through her future. No, 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 she whispered as she stepped closer. Every breath shook. Inside, the destruction hit her all at once. Rows of orchids slashed apart, hanging baskets ripped from beams, rare succulents crushed beneath boot prints. Her hands flew to her mouth. My plants, my order, she staggered forward, nearly slipping on wet soil. The entire shipment, $19,000 worth of specialized plants for the Ridgway Company, was destroyed. That contract was supposed to secure her business for the year. She walked deeper into the greenhouse, stepping over broken terracotta pots. Why would someone do this? She whispered to the empty room. But she already suspected an answer, and that thought made her throat tighten. She hurried to the small office in the back, praying the security cameras had captured something. Come on, please work, she murmured, tapping the flickering monitor. The footage rewound, grainy lines dancing across the screen. As the image sharpened, Ava froze, her heart dropping to her stomach. There he was. Leo. Her own brother. His face clear in the glow of the camera. Ava sank into the office chair as the footage played. Leo stood in the center of the frame, lifting her garden shears like a trophy, a twisted grin on his face. He moved through the greenhouse slowly, almost calmly, cutting, smashing, ripping out plants by the roots. Every few minutes he paused, turned to the camera, and stared directly into it, as if daring her to watch. Ava covered her mouth, her breath coming uneven. Leo, how could you? She watched him topple a row of rare ferns she had spent months propagating. Then he smashed her prized terracotta rose sculpture. Stop, Ava whispered, shutting her eyes, but she forced herself to keep watching. She needed every second of evidence. The footage continued for 2 full hours, 2 hours of deliberate, methodical destruction. When the video finally ended, Ava wiped her face with shaky hands. She remembered the last conversation they had had a week ago, around her parents' dining table. Her mother had reached across the table and said, Ava, your brother needs work. Let him help at the greenhouse. Ava had taken a slow breath then and said carefully, Mom, he doesn't have the experience. And I can't risk that contract. Apparently, Leo had taken it personally. Just flowers, her father had scoffed then, stabbing his fork into his potatoes. How hard can watering flowers be? Ava remembered clenching her jaw, holding back the long lecture about moisture control, pH balance, and temperature regulation. She had looked at Leo across the table. His smile had been tight, cold. No worries, sis. I get it. But clearly, he didn't. The morning after that dinner, the messages started. You think you're better than us. Must be nice having the favorite child business. Ava tried to talk to him, to calm him down, but each message grew sharper, more resentful. On the 3rd day he sent, You'll regret choosing plants over family. Ava had blocked him after that, thinking it was just anger talking. But now, seeing the footage, she realized he had meant every word. She sat forward, wiping her eyes. Enough, she whispered. She stood, grabbed her phone, and began photographing everything. The smashed pots, the footprints, the broken beams. Evidence, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. When she finished documenting every angle, she dialed the police. Yes, she said when an operator answered. I'd like to report a break-in and destruction of property. I have video evidence. Ava stepped outside the greenhouse and leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing as she waited for sirens. Dawn slowly broke over the field, casting pale light across the wreckage. Her arms shook from exhaustion and adrenaline. She kept replaying her parents' voices in her head. Family forgives.
He's your brother. Help him.
But forgiveness had limits, especially when someone destroyed your future.
She remembered the day she bought this land, how proud she had been.
She was 24, holding a binder full of plans. The loan officer had smirked when he saw her patched blazer, but his smirk faded when she laid out her projections. She had saved every dollar from working at the diner, the lumberyard, and the small plant shop in town.
She had worked triple shifts for years. And Leo? He had never taken a job longer than 3 months.
As Ava looked at the destroyed rose now, her chest tightened.
This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal.
The sound of sirens grew louder until flashing lights washed over the glass shards. 2 officers stepped out, surveying the destruction. "Miss Green," one called. Ava lifted her chin.
"Yes. The footage is inside. I want to file charges."
Inside the office, the taller officer leaned toward the monitor. Leo's face filled the screen, smoking as he swung a hammer into one of Ava's custom planters. The officer exchanged a look with his partner. "That's pretty clear," he muttered, scribbling notes. "Do you know this person?" "Yes," Ava said softly. "He's my brother." The shorter officer hesitated. "I'm sorry to hear that."
Ava swallowed hard.
"I still want to press charges." They spent the next hour documenting the damage, taking their own photos, and asking questions. Ava answered everything, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. When the paperwork was complete, the officers assured her they would bring Leo in for questioning by the afternoon. As they left, Ava stood in the doorway watching the patrol car disappear down the gravel road. The greenhouse was silent again, but not peaceful. She walked back inside and touched the stem of one surviving fern. "We'll rebuild," she whispered. She grabbed her keys and drove toward town. She had one more confrontation ahead, the hardest of all. Her parents deserved to see the truth, even if they didn't want to accept it. Ava parked outside her parents' house, a white 2-story home with tall columns and a porch swing her father never let her sit on as a child. The bright noon sunlight made the house feel deceptively warm, but Ava felt a knot in her stomach. She clutched the police folder and rang the doorbell. Her mother answered, wearing a lavender cardigan and a worried smile. "Ava, honey, you didn't call. Is everything okay?"
Ava stepped inside. "I need to talk to everyone, including Leo." Her mother hesitated but nodded.
"Your father's in the living room." When Ava entered, Leo sat on the couch scrolling through his phone, pretending not to notice her. Her father folded his newspaper with slow irritation.
"What's this about?"
Ava set the folder on the coffee table.
"My greenhouse was vandalized last night.
Everything's gone.
Ridgway's order.
Thousands of dollars in damage."
Her mother gasped. "Oh my goodness.
"Did you call the police?"
Ava looked directly at Leo. "Yes."
"And they have the footage?" Leo's eyes flickered, but he leaned back casually. "What footage?"
Ava took out her phone and pressed a button. The television flickered to life. Leo's smirking face filled the screen. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth.
"Leo, no."
Her father stiffened, jaw tightening.
Leo's expression changed instantly. His face went pale, his hand dropping the remote.
"Turn that off," her father snapped, voice sharp.
Ava paused the video but kept the frozen image on the screen, Leo mid-swing with her garden shears. "The police have all of this," Ava said. "They are filing charges." The silence in the room grew heavy. Finally, her mother whispered, "Ava, surely we can handle this privately."
"He's your brother."
Her father leaned forward, voice hard.
"The greenhouse is insured. I'll pay your deductible."
"Tell the police there was a mistake." Ava laughed, a bitter sound. "You think this is about money?"
Leo scoffed. "Then what is it about? Punishment?"
Ava's voice was firm. "It's about consequences." Her mother rushed toward her. "Please, Ava. Family forgives."
Ava stepped back.
"Family doesn't destroy everything you've worked for." Ava's father stood, anger rising through his posture. "This will follow Leo forever," he warned. "You don't understand what you're doing."
Ava met his eyes without flinching. "Good.
Maybe it will finally force him to grow up."
Leo jumped to his feet.
You've always thought you were better than me.
No, Ava replied. I've always worked harder. Her father opened his checkbook.
Name your price. Whatever the damage is, plus extra. We can fix this. Ava stared at the checkbook, then at the family photos on the mantel.
Leo at prom. Leo with his first car.
Leo's college graduation. Only one small photo of her business license tucked behind a candle.
She shook her head. Some things can't be bought. Her phone buzzed in her pocket.
A text from her assistant, Jonah, I'll give a statement.
I saw Leo yelling at you last week.
Another from her neighbor, Sam. What he did wasn't normal.
I'll testify too.
Ava's heart steadied. She had support. It just wasn't in this room.
Her father slammed the checkbook shut.
You're making a mistake. Ava reached for the folder.
No.
I'm protecting my future.
Ava walked toward the front door.
Behind her, her mother sobbed softly. Her father called her name once, sharp, disappointed, but she didn't turn back. She stepped into the driveway and inhaled the cool air, letting it steady her.
The door closed behind her with a soft click. It felt like a boundary finally falling into place.
She stood there for a long moment, remembering the first plant she ever grew, a little bean sprout she'd carried home from school at age 9. She remembered how excited she felt watching that tiny leaf appear. Her parents had barely noticed. But she had. She had nurtured it, cared for it, and kept caring for plants every day since. Now, even standing in the middle of loss, she felt something in her roots shifting.
She wasn't powerless. She wasn't alone. As she got back into her truck, her phone buzzed again.
A message from Ridgway's project manager. We heard what happened.
We can extend your deadline if needed. We believe in your work.
Ava breathed out slowly, a spark of hope warming her chest.
She put the truck in gear. I'm not done, she whispered.
Not even close. Ava returned to the greenhouse later that afternoon. The sun hung low, turning the broken glass into tiny mirrors. As she walked inside, she felt the weight of everything pressing on her chest. But she forced herself to breathe slowly. She had survived worse than this. The insurance adjuster arrived wearing a gray jacket and holding a thick clipboard. Rough night? He asked gently. Ava nodded. I documented everything. She handed him a folder filled with photos, receipts, plant values, and timestamps.
He raised his eyebrows.
You're very organized.
I have to be, Ava replied.
There's no room for mistakes in this kind of work. He walked through the greenhouse, murmuring numbers under his breath. Most people don't keep records this detailed, he said. It makes this process much easier. Ava crossed her arms, watching him measure broken beams and damaged trays. Will everything be covered?
He cleared his throat.
Not everything, but a large portion. Ava sighed, both relieved and exhausted. After he left, she sat on an overturned bucket and picked up a small, half-crushed seedling. Its leaves were bent, but the stem was alive. She whispered, You're tougher than you look. In a way, she was talking to herself. By evening, 3 cars pulled into Ava's driveway. She stepped outside, confused. The first person who approached was Mrs. Dalton, the owner of the little coffee shop where Ava once worked at age 16. She held a pair of gardening gloves and said, We saw what happened on the community page. We came to help. Behind her was Mr. Hayes, the elderly man who once bought basil from Ava's roadside table years ago.
He carried boxes.
You helped us grow our gardens, he said. Now let us help you. Then Ava saw someone she didn't expect, Mark, the landscaper who had helped her build the first greenhouse years ago. He stepped forward holding 2 cups of coffee. Heard the news, he said softly. Thought you might need a hand. Ava's throat tightened. You all didn't have to come. Mrs. Dalton smiled warmly. That's what community is. They spent hours sweeping glass, sorting salvageable plants, stacking broken pieces. Mark worked quietly beside her, lifting heavy beams she could never move alone. At one point, he said, You don't have to rebuild this alone anymore. Ava swallowed hard. I'm learning that. When the sun finally set, the greenhouse looked less like a graveyard and more like a starting point. The next morning, Ava arrived at the greenhouse early. She had barely slept, but she was fueled by determination. As she watered the few surviving plants, her phone buzzed. It was the Ridgway project manager. Ava, we're so sorry about what happened. We can adjust your timeline if needed.
Ava closed her eyes.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
We chose you because of your reputation, the woman said. Your resilience is one of the reasons we trust you. When the call ended, Ava pressed a hand to her heart. For the first time in days, she felt something warm, hope. Hours later, she received another knock on her office door. A tall woman in a navy blazer stood holding a gift basket. I'm Catherine from the Business Association, she said. We heard what happened. We'd like to offer you a free membership and connect you with clients.
Ava blinked in surprise. Why? Catherine smiled.
Because we admire how you handle challenges. Your story is inspiring. Ava accepted the envelope with soil-stained hands. Thank you, truly.
Catherine nodded.
You're not alone in this, Ava. As she left, Ava looked at the scattered plants around her. She whispered, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's a beginning. That afternoon, one of the security technicians hurried toward her. Miss Green, your parents are at the gate, he said. Ava stiffened. Tell them I can't be interrupted. But 20 minutes later, she heard her mother calling her name across the property.
Somehow, she had convinced someone to let her inside.
Ava set down the pot she was holding and wiped her palms on her jeans. She turned as her mother approached, eyes red and full of tears. Ava, honey, we need to talk about healing this family.
Ava kept her expression calm.
This is private property.
The business is closed for repairs. You shouldn't be here. Her mother's voice shook. Please, let's find a way to fix this.
Leo is sorry. Sorry.
Ava interrupted. He destroyed my livelihood. Her father stepped out from behind her mother. We've spoken to Pastor Williams.
He's willing to mediate a family meeting.
Ava shook her head. No, her father frowned.
What do you mean, no? I've documented this visit, Ava said quietly. If you don't leave, I will call the officer handling my case. Her parents stared at her, stunned. They weren't used to hearing this version of Ava, firm, unwavering. Her mother whispered, You've changed. Yes, Ava said. I have. That night, around 10 p.m., headlights swept across her driveway. Ava peered through her window and saw Leo's truck moving slowly down the road, stopping just long enough for her to notice. Her heart thudded once, then steadied. She stepped outside, lifted her phone, and snapped a photo.
No fear. No shaking. Just evidence.
She forwarded the photo directly to her lawyer. Another violation of the no-contact order. She went back inside and finished reviewing her new greenhouse layout. 5 minutes later, her business website pinged, 3 new 1-star reviews.
All from accounts created that same hour. All using the same writing style.
She didn't flinch.
She flagged them as harassment and moved on.
I won't let them distract me, she whispered. She spent the rest of the night marking camera placements and compiling plant lists. At 4 a.m., she finally laid out on her small office cot. Exhaustion pulled at her bones, but her heart felt steadier.
She was fighting back. She was protecting everything she built.
Before drifting to sleep, she whispered, I choose peace, even if I have to create it myself. By morning, Mark arrived again, this time with coffee, bagels, and 2 rolls of blueprint paper. The frame for the new greenhouse arrives Tuesday, he said, tapping his tablet. We'll get everything standing again. Ava smiled tiredly. I'm also hiring 2 assistants next week. I can't keep doing this alone.
Mark raised an eyebrow.
That's new.
Ava shrugged.
I'm learning that delegating isn't weakness.
Mark smiled. Good.
You deserve help. That afternoon, Ava received a call from Westbridge Corporation, a company twice the size of Ridgeway. We saw your story in the Business Journal, the representative said.
Your resilience impressed us.
We'd like to discuss a long-term contract. Ava stared at her phone in disbelief. A long-term contract? Yes, the woman replied. A substantial one. After the call ended, Ava sat down on a crate, tears filling her eyes, not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief.
Mark walked over.
Good news.
She nodded slowly.
Better than good. This could change everything.
Mark laughed. I knew it.
You're unstoppable.
Ava wiped her eyes.
I just want to rebuild.
You will, Mark said softly.
And you'll build even bigger. Over the next 2 months, the greenhouse transformed.
New beams rose into place.
Fresh glass panels reflected the sky.
Rows of seedlings sprouted.
Workers filled the space with quiet, steady energy. Ava moved through the greenhouse like a conductor leading an orchestra, guiding, teaching, adjusting. Every day felt like stitching pieces of her life back together. Suppliers who once doubted her now offered credit. Neighbors waved whenever she drove past. Former customers stopped by with encouragement. For the first time, Ava felt seen, not as Leo's sister, not as the girl who grows plants, but as someone who built something real. One afternoon, while attaching irrigation lines, Mark said, "You know, this place looks better than before." Ava wiped sweat from her forehead. "Yes, it does."
He smiled.
"You look lighter too."
Ava hesitated.
"Maybe I finally understand something. I was never meant to carry everyone."
Mark nodded.
"No one is." She looked around at the greenhouse, alive again. "I think I finally like who I'm becoming."
"You should," Mark said gently.
"You earned every bit of it." 6 months later, Ava hosted a small celebration to mark the reopening of Greenleaf Gardens. Friends, workers, neighbors, and old customers filled the newly restored greenhouse. The air smelled of fresh soil and blooming orchids. Warm laughter spread across the tables Mark had set up under climbing vines. "To Ava," Mrs. Dalton said, raising a glass. "To her strength, her courage, and her stubbornness." Ava laughed as everyone cheered. Jonah, her assistant, tapped her shoulder. "There's someone outside asking for you." Ava stepped out and froze. Her parents stood on the gravel path. "No, Leo." Her mother held a small box. "Ava," she said softly. "We're proud of what you built." Her father cleared his throat. "We didn't understand your world before, but we see it now." Ava listened without speaking. "We're not asking you to erase anything," her mother whispered. "Just to let us try to be better." Ava's throat tightened. She took a breath. "I appreciate you coming," she said gently. "But healing doesn't start with words. It starts with accountability." Her father nodded slowly. It was the first time he didn't argue. When Ava returned inside, Mark waited near the arbor of roses. "You okay?" he asked. Ava exhaled. "Yes. It didn't hurt like I thought it would." Mark's smile warmed her. "That's growth." As the evening continued, music played softly and candles flickered across the tables. People told stories of how Ava had inspired them, how her herbs helped their gardens thrive, how her kindness uplifted them during hard times, how her determination taught them never to quit. Ava felt the words wrap around her like sunlight. She had always poured love into the world through her plants, but she hadn't realized how much had come back to her. Mark walked up beside her. "There's one more thing," he said nervously. "Come with me." He led her to the back of the greenhouse, under a canopy of roses she had nurtured since seedlings. Then he knelt. Ava gasped as he opened a small velvet box. "Ava Green," he said softly, "you rebuilt your life with grace and strength. I want to build the rest of mine with you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, yes, of course." The celebration erupted into cheers as Ava and Mark walked back inside, hand in hand. Jonah hugged her. Mrs. Dalton wiped tears. Even the usually quiet workers clapped and smiled. "This is your new beginning," Jonah whispered. Ava looked around at the greenhouse, alive, glowing, filled with people who chose her, respected her, supported her. This was family. Her real family. As the night went on, Ava stood under the sign above the entrance, Greenleaf Gardens. Her name. Her work. Her victory. She thought about everything she had survived. The betrayal, the destruction, the loneliness, the heartbreak. But she also remembered every act of kindness, every helping hand, every moment of unexpected strength. She whispered to herself, "I grew back stronger." Mark wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Ready for what comes next?" She smiled. More ready than ever. She had rebuilt her greenhouse. She had rebuilt her life. And now, she was building a future rooted in love, integrity, and resilience. Ava Green had found her true family, one she built, one she trusted, one she chose. Ava enters a new season of stability and growth after the celebration. Her days become calm and purposeful as she walks through her restored greenhouse each morning. Mark suggests she expand the business, pointing out that she has outgrown her current space. At first, Ava hesitates, but as she looks at the increasing customer demand and the support around her, she realizes he's right.
She stands on an unused patch of land behind her greenhouse and imagines what her second structure could look like. For the first time in a long while, she feels excitement instead of fear. Choosing to grow again becomes a symbol of how far she has come and how much she is ready to embrace her new life. Leo faces the consequences of his behavior as his community service and vandalism charges become public knowledge. People in town avoid him, and his once confident attitude fades. Ava receives updates from the police about his violation of the no-contact order, but she stays calm and focused. She refuses to let guilt pull her back into old patterns. Her parents begin to understand that Leo's situation is the result of his own actions, not hers. They stop pressuring her to protect him and accept that he must face accountability. For the first time, Ava feels validated. She no longer carries the emotional burden of being responsible for her brother's choices, and she chooses peace over guilt. Ava and Mark start planning their wedding, choosing a simple ceremony under the rose arbor she spent years cultivating. Their friends and community eagerly offer support. Mrs. Dalton bakes the cake, Jonah manages decorations, and neighbors volunteer to help. Mark also begins designing a small cabin they plan to build near the greenhouse, allowing them to live close to the land Ava loves. As she works on greenhouse plans and wedding details, Ava reflects on how much her life has transformed. She's no longer the exhausted woman fighting alone. Instead, she is building a future with someone who respects and supports her. For the first time, she feels she is creating a life where she can truly breathe and be happy. Ava's parents visit her unexpectedly, but their tone is different. They come humbly, acknowledging their past failures. They admit they didn't support her dreams, didn't recognize her hard work, and allowed Leo's behavior to go unchallenged. They ask not for instant forgiveness, but for a chance to change. Ava listens but keeps her emotional boundary firm. She gently explains that forgiveness isn't immediate and that healing will take time. Her boundaries stay in place, but she recognizes the sincerity in their words. For the first time, her parents show accountability instead of pressure or excuses. They accept her response without guilt or argument and leave respectfully. This moment marks a quiet but meaningful shift in their relationship. On her wedding day, the greenhouse glows with sunlight, laughter, and the scent of roses. Ava walks down the aisle surrounded by the community that supported her through her hardest days. These people, neighbors, friends, former customers, are her true family. Mark reminds her how she rebuilt her life from broken pieces, and Ava recognizes how choosing herself changed everything. After the ceremony, she steps outside alone, reflecting on how far she has come, from heartbreak and betrayal to strength, stability, and love. She looks at the greenhouse, her future expansion, and the people cheering inside. She whispers, "This is family." Tell us where you're watching from today, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more.